Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good day wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the next episode of No Dice, No Glory. Sponsored by our jobs that actually pay us money, we're coming to you not at all live from an abandoned arms factory deep under a mountain in West Virginia. We are proud to proffer to you the finest in wargaming coverage. Without any further ado, let's get this show on the road.
Well, normally I say thank you, Sean, right now.
You still use that?
I still use that because you do the
way.
intros. But with us today, returning for a very special podcast, Sean
Hi.
Throck, Martin, Sarah. How you doing out there?
I'm good. How are you, man?
He's back. And not only are you here so we could create some podcasting magic, but we got my friend,
Good
Forrest
morning.
Harris, with
Good
us
morning.
today. Good morning,
No
sir.
Dice,
Good
No Glory.
afternoon. You know, yeah, so hey, I'm going to just let everybody know. We did this 2 weeks ago, I think, originally. Yeah, it was like the second or third we did this podcast. It was 13 days ago. And for some reason, Craig left the recording. It didn't come out. So I figured we'd throw a new spin in with throwing Sean. So we're here talking to him today because of a great game that is on Kickstarter. It's halfway through its Kickstarter campaign called Gunfight Royale. So let me just give you a little history of Mr. Harris here. He is the brains behind the amazing game that we've written a lot about here at No Dice, No Glory, called Gunfighter's Ball, which is a 28,
Big 28. I call
bigger.
it modern 28.
Like heroic
It's the same size as Dead
I think
Man's
it's
Hand,
what art?
Cobblestone, and
Big.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing game that takes place in the Old West. So we're going to talk about all of that.
I'm doing
And
fabulous.
welcome.
How are you?
Sir. How you doing today? I mean, I already asked you that. So let's talk about your history of war with gaming, and the predecessor
Sure.
game here.
What would you like to know?
Gunfighter's Ball. Well, where did you get your start in gaming? Because you are not only
Thank you.
an avid gamer, you're also an amazing sculptor. So let's talk about the history of
I'll let
Knuckleduster.
your listeners know I am
guess.
54
Probably the
years
best thing.
old. I'm a gentleman of a certain age. I came up during the 70s, and I think it was about 78. Time magazine had a one-page article on a wargame convention in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and they had a picture of a Napoleonic unit and a guy crouching down at eye level in aviator glasses. Of course, it was the 70s, looking across the table at these troops, and I was just hooked when I saw that. They were probably 30 millimeter Scroobies or something like that. But so I went to my local hobby shop in Galesburg, Illinois, the Depot Hobby Shop, which is mostly model railroad stuff. And there was a very kindly old guy that ran the place named Ray, and he kept a rack of gaming stuff. And I picked up some Airfix plastic Napoleonics. I picked up some copies of Wargamers Digest. I picked up some Grenadier orc figures for some reason. I don't know. They didn't go with anything else, but I just thought they looked cool or something. And a few other things. And yeah, I would go there with my allowance money and pick up a few things, and just started getting into it that way. But I was in complete isolation. I was out in the country. There's nobody around that knew anything about wargaming. And it was pretty much that way all the way through college. I didn't really encounter a lot of wargamers until I was an adult out of college. And Napoleonics, particularly Peninsula War Napoleonics, have always been my passion. And the Western stuff, I don't know, was always part of my consciousness. I had some latent interest in the West growing up, but I remember when I threw my back out one time in my 20s. I was laying on the floor and I watched a bunch of John Wayne and Clint Eastwood Westerns, and I thought, man, I'd love to game this period. The only thing that was out there were these enormous Grenadier again. I don't know what I had with that brand, but they were these enormous figures, and they were well sculpted, but they were like 35s easily. Nothing else went with them, but they had 12 figures, and it was like different archetypes, you know. And I started with those, and then I discovered Old Glory's war paint stuff, and started playing the old Desperado. And I experimented with other stuff too. Some really old rule set. I won't mention the name of it, but it was impossible to play. There was even a game accessory you had to make yourself by cutting out these circles and putting a paper clip somehow on it, and yeah, it didn't work. But yeah.
And for those who haven't figured out Gunfight Royale, I don't know why I can't say that today. Gunfight Royale and Gunfighter's Ball, they take place in the Old West. Yeah, look, I'm a huge fan of the game. You know, it's interesting you talk about Napoleonics. I didn't ask you this the last time. What's your preferred scale and rule
I'm
set for Napoleonics?
insane.
You don't have to mention
So
it
I
if you don't want
have
to.
multiple scales that I use. So I start let's, and you know, different scales,
Of
but the
course.
same, not only the same period, but the same theater of the same period. So I've got 6mm Adlers in for volley and bayonet in 3x3 centimeter bases. So you can do Salamanca on a dining room table. Start there. Okay. 15mm that's my
Wow.
24-man units, four figures to the stand. And our group long ago decided we're going to mount for everything using the Napoleon's Battles mounting, but then we can mix it, use those stands for different rule sets. And I play Black Powder with it. Used to play House Rules Napoleonic 2. And that was a whole different mounting. That was back in the day.
Sean,
I haven't played that
Sean and I
one.
are big fans of Napoleon at War, but that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. Sad.
It's
no
pretty
longer around, is it?
It is.
Oh.
Yeah. Matter of fact, you can get all the rules online for free. But
Oh, that's good.
you know, we'll talk about naps a little later
Oh, I
on.
do too.
Yeah.
I do
I like
too.
the
If I
target
had it to
leader.
start
I like
over
things
again.
to look big and chunky.
Well, when I
and
started
so I
putting
can
together my
paint.
Napoleonic armies,
Yeah,
there were no Victrix or Perry sets out there. You know, your 28 were basically front rank or Old Glory. Those were your choices, and they were great figures,
Yeah.
both of them. But I don't know. It just didn't really. When it came time to do a 28mm army, excuse me, I'm a little hoarse. But it came time to do a 28mm army, I started a new period. I did AWI instead of going back. and time and time again, I've said, I want to do this other scale. And I look at everything I've already done and said, nah, Forrest, that would be stupid. You spend the rest of your life putting that together. But finally, my third scale is 40mm for skirmish stuff because I love Sharps rifles. And I have some British riflemen and some guerrillas and some French Voltigeur and everything, and so a little bit of cavalry, and I have these sort of Ian Weekly style plastered, buildings, scratch built buildings, and and the windows, so the windows and doors. Since I'm a sculptor and I have a production facility,
Yeah.
I made one window and one door, and then I cast them a million times to do all these scratch built buildings, because that's the hard part, right? Scratch building is all the little detail stuff. Yeah.
All the fiddly bits, yeah. And you just print them out, which is great.
So you decided, which a lot of people would think is crazy, to start a game company.
I agree, totally.
And it was built around because it is, man. It's like there's so many of them are like, because I had somebody that asked me, should I open up a game store? I go,
It's like Richard
fast?
Branson said
Sure.
about the
Yeah.
airline industry. How do you make $1 million in the airline industry? Invest $10 million.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100% true. But you based it on Gunfight Royale, Gunfighter's Ball, which is to me is an amazing game. When you first started this, did people think, "What are you crazy? There's no real
What?
market for this."
Well, I eased
It's
into it.
really niche.
So my earliest stuff was
What are you
I
thinking?
started sculpting when I was still hand sculpting, when I was still in my Wallace and Gromit sculpting phase, my Gumby, damn it, stage. So I decided, well, I'll just make bystander figures because there weren't a lot of them out there. And so I started making bystander figures and then little comic things, like I made a ZZ Top saloon band. You know, I did, and I've seen other people do that too. You know, they'll have a mariachi band or something. That's how you start. And started building a little bit of a following. I took a break to do a bunch of 1812 stuff because I have my 1812 line, which I did for 2012. The defensive Baltimore,
and I want
the
to
Miss
buy all of
Defense of
them.
Baltimore. But anyway, I did that,
Yeah.
and that sort of laid the groundwork of the competencies, the basic competencies I needed to move into Gunfighter's Ball. And I started, excuse me, I had a bunch of these Western figures that I was selling that were hand sculpted, and they were smaller than the modern stuff that's out there. They were like the size of war paint, probably old glory stuff that was really almost true 25. And I showed up at Adepticon one year and I looked around. Everybody else, all the cool kids had the new fancy styles of figures. And I'm sitting, and they also had these beautiful display cases and full color artwork. And I'm sitting there with, you know, basically a sandwich sign and plywood cases and these little figures that didn't matter, but people were still interested in them. And as I was sitting there, I was thinking, man, I got to do something different. But what I need is what everyone else has, which they have a system, you know, with book and cards and stuff like that. And they have then supplemental stuff. And then they have the figures and everything. And they sell it as a cohesive unit. That's they can market around it. And so I started moving in that direction, started developing it. And the Gunfighter's Ball name, I don't know why, just something hit me. It was that AC/DC song, I've Got Big Balls. I think is what it was. I'm like, Gunfighter's balls held here weekly. So that was sort of this image in my mind popped up of this big poster, you know, to that effect. And I said it captures that naughtiness of the Old West that was really a big part of it. Yeah.
I never knew that, and I've talked to you quite a bit, man. That's it's a good game. And before we get into Gunfight Royale, this is what I like. And Sean, I don't think you've played Gunfighter's Ball yet.
I haven't yet, although I gotta say, the minute I heard Gunfighter's Ball, the thing I immediately thought of was Headbanger's Ball. And I'm like, this is the most appropriate thing because it was a heavy metal show back in the day and everybody's carrying pig iron and it was like perfect in my brain. Yeah.
All right. Trivia question. Who hosted it?
Adam Curry, right?
No, it was Ricky Ratman.
Was it? Okay. I
that's
believe
what
you.
I'm going with. That's my answer.
Okay.
So
I'm going to Google.
So what I really like about the game and why I think you should play it is because you don't really need that many models. The game to me is heavier on scenery, which I find interesting because my 28mm scenery is from all over. So having them play, you know, in Middle Eastern buildings, it's kind of neat. But it is a game that if you go to a game store and you see, it looks like people playing poker around a miniatures table. No, they're playing Gunfighter's Ball because the game uses chips for health for each of the characters. It uses a card activation system, which I think is really neat. Matter of fact, I got some great World War II cards just to use for the game. And then there's a lot of stuff underneath the hood. It is an easy game to play. I can tell you how easy my son can play it, and he has played it. That there's a lot of stuff under the hood, so it just comes out to a lot of fun. The other really neat thing about the game, and we talked about this last time, but I love mentioning this, and I think it's a selling point for the game, is one thing Forrest is an expert on too is popular culture. So if you look at some of the characters in the game, because of licensing, they're not the exact. You have historical. You got the Earps, and I think you got Bass Reeves. You have some great historical figures, but you have figures that maybe appeared only in movies. Um, One of my favorite movies, it was a Mel Brooks Western, and some of the characters in Gunfighter's
Well, I
Ball
can neither
represent
confirm
those
nor
characters.
deny that, but
But not exactly.
I
Of
respect
course.
your observation.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Right, right. So, yeah, it's if you go to the website, you and you love that movie, you could kind of figure it out. So I have all those characters because I remember I just did a purchase with you. It was at Historicon. What was it? Last year or the year before? It was probably, yeah, the last time they had one. And I go, "Who's that?" And it was
yeah.
a very
We
big
call
dude. I
him
forgot his name. Who's just a pawn.
Mangus.
I forgot what you guys call him. What do you guys?
Oh,
Mangus.
yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I'll take that." And you have your pasta. What's the
Oh,
other
the linguine
group
Western
called?
pack, and then we have the
Pasta.
linguine.
They don't say
Yeah,
spaghetti.
and then the linguine Western henchman is the other pack.
The linguine Western pack. Yeah, and as I'm painting them, I'm looking at certain movies to make sure that
Thank you.
they're pretty good. But I got to tell you, you're a really good sculptor. It's just because the characters have the flavor that you want them to have. So, you've done some great work. The other thing that I love about the game is the different types of card mechanics that you have in there. And that to me it streamlines the game because playing with so if you played regular Gunfighter's Ball, you'd have to roll what two 10-sided dice, see where the damage hit and this and that. With the cards that are available, and you don't need them. It not only does it do all that for you, but a lot of guys are getting shot in the ass. It's funny. So if you like a game that has some witty humor behind it, it is such a great game for you. But it also has a historical flavor. You could do OK Corral because the historical to me the historical figures are amazing. But then
I
again,
was
you can
flipping through them and they look really great. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and then you have some Weird West stuff. It is such a fun game, but it's a
Hey, we haven't
game
said something yet. It's Knuckleduster, all one word.com. You should go there and check it out.
you definitely you
Knuckleduster.com.
definitely should. Matter of fact, I'm thinking about purchasing some 1812 stuff because I have the webpage open too. So it's such a good game, and it's a game, and this is where we'll tie it into Gunfight Royale that non-war gamers can play. So if I had people over and they were like, "Well, show us a miniatures game," I take this game out because I believe in the United States especially, there is hardly anyone that exists that doesn't see or understand the culture of the Old West. That, it was very iconic. And I think we talked last time, a decade doesn't go by
Yep.
without a couple of Western movies that are coming out that are really
Yeah.
good. I think it lives in everybody's memory. And to me, if I'm going to get somebody hooked into miniatures wargaming, this is one I'm taking out because
Right, because the Old West is so iconically American. It's not a thing that like everybody has war movies, right? Like wars happen everywhere. But like I for the original cowboy, you have to come to the Old West. And so it's something I think, especially here, everybody just
I
gravitates
heard
towards
an
because
analysis.
it
I
is
read an analysis
our specific
of why
thing.
the West is so iconic in a book, an old book. It must be from the 50s. It was a history of a guy named Liver Eating Johnson. John Russell gave me this book, and Liver Eating Johnson. It's a long story. I won't go into it. He was a mountain man. He had many
That's a name.
adventures, some of which were very disgusting. They've made movies. They made Paul Newman made a movie.
Hated
But
Liver.
anyway,
Just hated it.
one of the things he said early on, when in the preface to the book, he said, "The American West is one of those ages of mythology and heroes because this always happens just before civilization takes hold, when you've got the transition between sort of the hunter-gatherer ethic to the settled civilized ethic. So during that transitional period, you get these stories, and you have these heroes that are larger than life. And, so he said that's the West is one of those times. And it's our mythology as a country. We don't, you've got Robin Hood and King Arthur in Britain, and you have other characters in Norse mythology and everything else. This is our native mythology, to the settlers of the country anyway, our mythology.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's also popular everywhere. Like, one of the most popular game periods in England is the American Civil War. They're fascinated with it, but because I think of movies and some amazing books, the Old West is really kind of larger than the United States, and it's that whole it's in the
Yeah, I
80s,
mean,
if you remember in Japan, cowboy hats were very big. You kind
Oh
of
yeah.
have to wonder why. It just transcends, I think, even our culture, and that is what makes this game so fun. There's nobody that will say, I'm not going to rush out and see a Western movie, but I'll watch them when they're on TV, and some of them are just amazing. And what's also good about Gunfighter's Ball, some of them are even somewhat in the game, along with some of the heroes. But as I said, it's a game that I would get non-war gamers to play to get into miniature gaming. You take that a little step further with Gunfight Royale, which is the reason why we're talking.
so
What is the
well,
idea
so I
behind it,
produce miniatures,
and
and
what's it
I'm
all
pretty
about?
serious about my art, my craft. And I've started developing these theories that are about about the market. And I started thinking, well, there's people out there who would really enjoy miniatures, but they're never going to be a hobbyist. They're never going to pick up a paintbrush. We're fooling ourselves with that group of people. We're fooling ourselves to think that we're going to make them into painters and modelers. And then there's a transitional group that will. There's a certain percentage of people that will see
Yeah.
a figure and just be mesmerized by it and want to know, how can I do that? How can I participate in the hobby? So you got these, and then you got the hobbyists. So you got these three groups. Now the people on the end of the spectrum, well, first of all, the people in the middle are either going to see you engaging in your hobby and get interested, or they're going to encounter it out there in culture, which is hard to do because we're not out there. I mean, we don't get seen much by people who aren't in the hobby. So if you can take
Right.
those
Yeah.
people who had never considered being a hobbyist and those people that will never be a hobbyist, and give them a product that they can enjoy and have that same experience that we have with Gunfighter's Ball without any of that work, that we enjoy. We don't consider it work, but if there's something magic.
Hey, well, sorry about that, folks. Craig decided once maybe he doesn't like you because this has never happened to me any other time there,
Never
Forrest.
happened to me before.
Craig, we meet again.
Yeah, so we're back within a minute, but we were, I believe, talking about the target audience for Gunfight
Yeah.
Royale. Oh,
That was
Right,
not
so
Craig.
no, we're still good. We're still good.
Yeah.
Well, the target audience, I felt, were the people on the periphery of our hobby, people that they've sort of seen miniatures, but they would never commit, or don't think they would ever commit to participating in the hobby to the extent of modeling and so forth. So those are the people, and also sort of thinking along the lines of the friends and relatives that we have, because they're the ones who see us doing this stuff. And so one of the early sales pitches I made for this on social media was the feeling I had that this is a gift to give to your friends and relatives that are non-gamers. And it's sort of a way of telling them, here's what I do in a form that you can enjoy. So that was my first thought. I am finding that good old hardcore gamers, grognards like ourselves, are really enjoying it. At the convention that John's at, they're just having a blast with it right now. He's demoing it.
Yeah,
And,
my family's been playing it. And they really like it. So Gunfight Royale. This will be, by the time this comes out, you'll have about 12 days left on the Kickstarter. And like we said, we're more than halfway there for the Kickstarter. I'm going to also include a link. But what Gunfighters Royale is, it's a one-stop shopping for anybody who wants to game the Old West.
Yeah.
I have some of the components. You have a beautiful 20 by 20 board. You have miniatures or models. You don't have to paint, folks. You don't really have to paint them.
Well, let's talk about these models for a second, because one thing I wanted to talk about before we get into like all the components is this game is built to look like a miniatures game, right? You've got your board is a Old West street, and the miniatures look like kind of cartoony, sort of with a big head. Yeah,
right.
And I love the look of it because it's like exactly what you said. All the components are here to kind of get someone into miniature gaming in a really fun way, right? Because you've got all the like fun components in there as well, with the poker chips and the big-headed characters and the cool art. And then you go, maybe they want to paint it. Yeah, so it's just, if you all got to see this, if you haven't headed over to Kickstarter yet, look it up. It's Gunfight Royale. The components on this are gorgeous and thematic, and really kind of speak to the Old West.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
The cartoon design, so the overall art design of this thing and the look of it. And secondly, you have the idea that so it get kind of dark. We understand it in the right context, in the context it was meant, which is cinematic and humorous. But these kind of disarm all of that. This is design. There's enough stuff for a broken record with Western games. Sometimes the same old. It's got badges. It's got that same font. It's got the driftwood, and it's got the leather, and it's got the thing, and it's like Instant West. Just add graphics. So I wanted something different, and so we went with a cartoon style. And also, I'm hugely informed by the artwork of that time period. A lot of what we associate with Old West quote graphics it came out of the 70s, maybe the 80s. A lot of that stuff.
60s.
Right.
You go back and you see what they actually. Well, like for instance, in Gunfighter's Ball, the playing cards all have been designed with. I actually took an antique ace, which has the least graphics on it, right? An ace only has an A on it. Right? So I took it, I scanned it, I cloned out the print, and so it gave me a background that was actually what an Old West card's background looked like. So stuff like that goes through my design things. This one has hand-drawn components. Of course, they're cleaned up afterward, but they're cartoonish because they're ink strokes. They're actually ink strokes. They're not virtual ink strokes done with a computer. And so, yeah, the whole art design puts you at ease, makes you kind of smile when you see it. That was the goal, really.
Yeah, these sculpts look really, really amazing. Essentially, they're characters that have macrocephaly, where they have very large heads.
Yeah.
Which, because the heads are, it's because you have a player card that that gives you all the information for that character. You could easily pick it out on the table. But this game, to me, and for the price you're selling it for, I think you're crazy, because this has everything. Because I do have an advanced copy. You have 4 or 5 different card decks. You have a damage deck. You have the Dirty Tricks card set that also plays in the game, which I love, because even after your character is out of the game, you can still drop those cards.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So looking at making a board game was a little intimidating because, going into it, can't just, a board game has its own, I want to say language. A board game has to function in a certain way. It can't just be a miniatures game put on a board. It has to be a board game. And so it's like there can be no ambiguity about the terrain. So, there's dotted lines where you have to pay if the space has a dotted line, you have to pay to cross it. Oh, by the way, Mitch, the fence has a dotted line in the middle of it that we're going to make it easier to see in the final copy.
Okay.
I've had that question a couple of times. But yeah, to make Gunfighter's Ball into a board game meant really make some functional changes that made it function as a good board game. And so yeah, we didn't just lift Gunfighter's Ball and put it on the board. We made some adaptations to that. I can't remember what the question was. I'm not sure if I answered it.
Oh, about the different card sets and the Dirty Tricks cards. There's a lot of neat stuff in the game. A lot of neat stuff in the game.
Well, thank you. And I was going to say about the Dirty Tricks. So when I'm thinking of this as a board game, I'm thinking, what do the players want out of the experience? And nobody wants to get left out, because we when you play a game to the last man, we'll keep getting left out until there's only people in it. Well, let's change that up a little. Let's give people a reason to still be in it. And that's why you can still play Dirty Tricks on people even after your character's dead.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so that is always one of the big worries in every miniatures game, right? Is like, especially in multiplayer games, what happens when my dude dies? And now you've still got a way to influences, which is great.
Yeah. Right. Which
and
actually was used against me when we were playing. My wife handed because you only allow, when you activate your player, you only get so many actions. He needed an extra action. So she had a card where the player could take an extra walk action. So, and it was the guy with the knives. He only had knives. So he was able to get close to me and then attack me. And essentially, I lost the game because of that. So it's the interaction between the players, because you could play it with up to 4 players, I believe.
Six.
Six. You can control one character. You can control multiple. You can play with 2 teams. You can play everybody out for themselves, because the mission or the scenario you're playing is also by card draw.
Oh, cool.
It's really slick, kind of how you did this game with the characters. But once again, the coolest thing is this is one stop. This is one purchase. You got everything, which I love.
Yeah. You're talking about the different scenarios and so forth, and the feel of that. I was greatly influenced by some young guys who helped work on it in their 20s. One of which is my adult son, and they've grown up playing Team Fortress and some of the arena video games, and that's the feel that this thing has, is that sort of madcap, dirty trick playing. You're picking an archetype play, and each archetype has a very specific set of skills that's separate from the others and sometimes offsets the others. So you have to be careful who you choose to play, what character you choose to play, and then interplay between the different characters on the board, and then the different players taunting each other and just having fun throwing dirty tricks. It just becomes very madcap, and I think you probably experienced that.
Yes, I certainly did. Not to my liking, which is another neat thing about the game, because every character really has different capabilities in the game, and it's almost like, I hate to compare it to Armada, where you build your ship and with all these upgrade cards, you often forget like what your total package of capabilities are. So within this game, each character has one. Some of the weapons have different capabilities, kind of neat as well. But the game is also one thing that I've learned from playing a little bit more since we last spoke, is it's not a shoot 'em up game. There's a lot of kind of cunning and thinking that needs to kind of go with playing this game. And I could see definitely by adding more people to playing this game that sit around the table, the game changes dramatically. There's a lot there. There's a lot of there.
Yeah,
so how do you mean? As somebody who's never played the game before, how does it change dramatically?
Well, when you have like an odd number of players, you usually end up playing every person for themselves, or one person plays, 2 characters against 2 characters. But it's the skills of that character. Some of them kind of go better together than others. Like, there's a lot of characters with long guns.
Yeah.
Those are not necessarily really good in some situations. So somebody like the guy that's Sneak, I forgot his name already, because they're very
Sneak.
the
Yeah.
Sneak. Um, that guy works in concert with somebody with a long rifle a little bit better than, somebody with pistols. It's the game also changes based on the people you have at the table, because sometimes when, you're playing teams, especially that you're never really out of this game, people's personalities will affect this game, I think, as you play in larger crowd.
Sure.
Oh,
If
yes.
I it's almost like, and I hate saying this, playing it one-on-one is amazing, but it's the out of all the combinations you can have sitting around the table, it's the least cool because, you're playing against one person, both you guys have the same kind of, mission within the scenario, and you're not really it's it it's hard to explain, but it's there the
Right.
more
Well, when
focus
you're
you add
thinking
into
about
it.
it's like an avatar it's an adversarial board game, so you have to think about how everyone else is playing, right?
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
would be like playing a Risk, except with one really important guy. And you're like, is that guy gonna go over here? Is he gonna come after me? Or is he gonna Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and you
You
could
start.
totally screw your buddy over.
Yeah. So you can those dirty trick cards. You're playing teams. Um, you're thinking communally about those dirty trick cards, and you're picking a time in the future when you can help your friend with it. And some of them are very powerful, and you hang on to them until the right moment. You don't just thoughtlessly throw them out there. And it's really fun to watch that happen. I was watching the playtesters, and especially these guys in their 20s, and they were just they got in uh, a little huddle, and we're looking at their cards and laughing. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, so then when the time came, one of them threw this card. It's the most powerful card in the game, and you don't encounter it very often. Just lucky to get it. It was on the next turn, misses and misses or hits. And he threw it at exactly the right time when a guy thought he had all the advantages and all of his advantages turned into disadvantages. It was
No.
just hilarious. Yeah. So there's just unpredictability, dynamite. Um, you know, there's something I thought a moment ago talking about the different characters and their abilities. Yeah, there's some people who don't pay a lot of attention, never really use their special ability. I've seen that happen in other games too. I've done it before too. Like, oh, my guy can do this. I didn't think of that. It
Yeah.
rewards the person. It rewards somebody for thinking. It rewards you for being cunning, for thinking about what all your advantages are and what are the advantages of these weapons I have. I keep this item or get rid of it. Does it work well with my guy? Or is it something I should keep because it works really well against that guy and where he's positioned himself?
Well,
Yeah.
it brings up another really neat part about this game as a gateway game is that it teaches a lot of mechanics or characteristics of games. So just like picking that right character is key to the game, depending on your mission. Well, list building is one of the attractions people have for a lot of games. I probably spent more time on army builders than I do actually playing the game. So some of
Same.
some of that's
Yeah.
here. You got a lot of mechanics that if somebody gets the bug from playing this game, they will be very familiar with them as they see them in the hobby, you know, at large. I think that's real slicky.
Yes, I developed another one of my little philosophies, I guess, about gaming is that it's all very well and good to be innovative, but does a good service to the gaming hobby to have a game that has intuitive mechanics that are intuitive to people who have played a lot of war games. So instead of inventing an entirely new concept, let's stick with the concept that cover gives you a -1, or cover
Right.
gives you +1. Let's stick with those basic concepts in most games and not so innovative or change things so much. Just in some cases, it's almost vanity that leads a person to think, well, I can come up with a better idea than that. And that might be true. Maybe you do.
Cool, innovative, complicated thing that everybody's going to have to learn that's like nothing else. And then no one ever learns it because they just play it the way it's always been
Column
played.
shift. The column shift. Everyone should know about the column shift.
Right.
So anyway, I started thinking, well, there's sort of a baseline of skills that a person has. If you walk into a convention floor, it'd be nice to walk up to a table and know, oh, I get, okay, so if you aim, you get a +1. And, I get a charge. And if a game goes too far off, then you just make it hard for people. I'm a headache trying to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
I stuck to rather than to come up with a completely different concept.
And a lot of people like the Euro card type games. I wouldn't say this is a true Euro card type game, but it has that card feel. The other cards, I've never seen anybody. You have a beautiful hardbound rule book, sir. I don't go through it very often because the rules to me. What?
Dave Taylor is why it's beautiful. It's because of Dave Taylor. That's why it's beautiful. I just had to put that plug in there.
It is a beautiful book. It's an awesome book. It is, but I don't have to keep looking at the book because I know the rules. The rules are very intuitive, and they're about as deep as they need to be. To me, there's nothing like, okay, I do take shortcuts. Instead of rolling for a wound, I use the wound cards. A hardcore grog may not like that, but it's kind of interesting. Like, you've done your work here. And what I noticed about this game is, and really a question I'd love to ask really about, all your Gunfighter Old West games, it seems like you spent more time developing the mechanics of the game than the characters, because I don't have to do a lot of research to know about the ERPs. A lot of that's already been done for me. I can watch a movie. It's ready history. I don't have to go very deep. It seems like you spend a lot of your time with the mechanics. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, it's definitely true. Is this Gunfighter's Ball or Gunfight Royale? It's true in either case.
It's true in either case.
Yes. Yeah, everything you've been talking about, and I think a word we've used before is elegance in a rule set. I think it was somebody in the old HMGS magazine did an article about simulations. His job was to create simulations for industry or government. I can't remember which, but he made the point that having more variables does not make something a better simulation. It's more important to identify the important variables. And so if you can make a game that addresses the variables that are actually going to make a big difference, or the ones that are the most enjoyable, or that gamers have the easiest time manipulating and thinking about, can be gamed the easiest. There are lots of important variables in a real gunfight that you just can't incorporate into a game. Fear, I mean, you can have morale rules, but I mean, there's certain things that, they'll just never really be easy to game. You take those things that are easy to game and make sure that you make it easy to do, and impact that. I almost used a word I hate. I hate the word impactful. Somebody made that up. Somebody at some corporation made that word up just before they gave a presentation. So I won't use it. But important is a perfectly good word. But yeah, so I don't like to clutter a game up with a bunch of modifiers for modifiers' sake. And all of us, by this time, I think, are tired of that. That's been the mantra in the hobby now for the last 10 years, is let's not go down a list of 20 modifiers every time and still come up with a +1 at the end of it net.
Right? Yeah.
So on this, so, and I recommend, I get a lot of new war gamers. For some reason, I'm not a great creator of my own, but I'm great at helping other people with theirs. But a lot of people, especially with the Zenobia Award coming up, people, matter of fact, they all had to have their stuff in by yesterday, were asking me questions. And I said, look, I don't know if I'm going to be your mentor as the award goes on, but as you develop a rule, think about this. So what? Are you putting it in the rule in just to make it, well, I'm smarter than everybody else? Does it add to the game? And then does it add to the experience? So you say that perfectly. And that's what I really dig about both these games. There's just enough there. It's kind of like that last chair or bed Goldilocks sat in, that it's not bogged down by its own rules. It's a fun subject. And that's the other one too. I think Gunfight Royale is such a fun little subject, and the models look great. You get so much in the box, but above all, it's just so much fun. And look, our audience for this podcast are going to be hardcore grogs. I'd still get this game because
Heck yeah.
you've probably been in that situation where somebody's like, yeah, I don't know why you spent all your time with that miniature gaming. It's stupid. But when this box came, and my wife actually opened it up, thought it was something for her. She goes, I want to play this. She's never said that before. And I have more games here. I could build a house just for my games. She's never really said that before. But the thing about the Old West, and I think what got her was, oh, wait, this is a fun game because look at these miniatures,
Yeah, exactly.
Big head.
Trying to get that point across to people, because grognards, when you said the word grognards, and I don't blame them, this is our hobby. I paint Perry miniatures, 40s, and I get it, that you look at a cartoon figure and you go, I don't like those things. They got big heads, and that's perfect. That's fine. I understand that. That's why we give you the option to get in the Gunfighter's Ball characters if you want. But I wanted that reaction that your wife had. They look at it and they go, oh, and immediately they know this is going to be something fun. This isn't going to be heavy. Makes it lighter.
It is.
And I think, yeah.
It is.
And I think that's interesting. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's one of the interesting things about game design generally, right? Is like there's this kind of visual syntax that lets you know if a game is serious or fun. And I think it's super cool that you've kind of incorporated some of those serious elements in a very light way, it seems like, but you've obviously communicated with the way that the sculpts are made that this is a fun game. This is for you to kind of get into and enjoy and have a good beer and pretzels night with your friends. And maybe you'll come by this other stuff that you can paint and build later once you've really figured this out. And I think that's really smart.
Yeah, you're setting up your other game very well for this game.
Oh, that had occurred to me.
I can imagine.
I would like to sell a lot of Gunfighter's Ball products, and there's two reasons for doing it. One obviously is the marketing for Gunfighter's Ball and wanting to bring new people into the hobby, and the other one is just the artistic ambition of creating a game like this. I'd never done anything like this, and I just wanted to know if I could do it, if I could pull it off, if I could make this cute little cartoon game that was a lot of fun and made people laugh.
Yeah. So we are I'm looking now. It seems like since we've been talking, more people have bought into this. And we're not live, folks. We're totally not live.
We're not?
No, we're not.
Lied to.
I'm going to thank John Russell for that, because these folks are at the convention that he's at, and he's demoing it right now.
Mm.
Is it me? I wasn't paying attention, or did it go up since we've been talking now for?
It has. I actually saw it go up when I re-clicked on it. Yeah.
Wow. So you're definitely going to hit the. You're definitely going to hit. This will definitely be funded. Now, one of the things too, and we talked about last time, is there's a lot of neat add-ons. So the game comes essentially with 12 characters. You will recognize the stereotypes that he's going for here. Yes, there's 2 women as well, so the female gamer will not feel left out. If you also go to the Kickstarter page, there's a ton of playthroughs, a ton of videos. The other one too I kind of dig about this is Forrest will blast your inbox with updates like all the time, and I noticed a successful Kickstarter has a lot of good communication.
Communicates, yeah.
And you're totally doing it. But we talked about this the last time. The anti-hero looks like somebody that I used to watch a lot of movies of, who later became a detective in San Francisco. There's a lot of really neat stuff. What's also cool here for the Gunfighter's Ball crowd, you can get these characters in 28 millimeter, and I believe that you said they'll come with cards that can easily go
the
into
ones
the
that don't have cards in the game, like the stretch goal characters, cards will come with the figures, and then the ones that do have cards in the game, you don't need it because you've already got the cards. And I want to make one thing clear, because I think I really early when I started selling Gunfighter's Ball, I called it 32 millimeter. That was such a blunder because everyone else calls that size 28. Then people call 35s and 36s 32s. So these are the same size as all the figures that are considered 28s today. The Perrys, the Copplestone, as I said, the Dead Man's Hand, which is the other popular, and I love Dead Man's Hand figures, by the way, but they're the other popular Wild West figures. So in the Kickstarter where it says 28, I've added /32 so people understand that these are the Gunfighter's Ball size figures. These are not the old ones I used to sell, which were smaller. So I just wanted to jump in there and clarify that one thing. But yes, I recognize that my existing base of customers who I treasure, absolutely treasure, and have brought me this far, they love that style of figure, and I want to make sure that they can enjoy this game any way they want to. If they want to use these figures, that's just perfectly fine with me.
So the first stretch goal is just if the game gets funded, which I'm going to say, why'd you do that? But you explained to me why you did that, and I think that's awesome. I like those 3 characters. Are they going to be included if this thing funds, or do I have to pay for those extra, the giant, the bush ranger, and the hired gun? Because I really want the bush ranger, to be honest. I really like that
he's
guy.
pretty cool. Well, the plan is the basic. Okay, so I went 2 ways on this. I don't want it to be $100 box game with 1 million figures. There's a lot of good games like that, pirate games and stuff like that. But I thought, let's make an affordable game. Let's keep it down. Let's keep the basic box down in price so that we can sell it to as many people as possible. And then we'll have blister packs that have the expansion figures. So those stretch goal figures, hired gun giant and bush ranger that you see there, that would be a blister pack including cards. And that would be, like my other blister packs, color artwork, little plastic box. And so that there would be groups of 3 new characters for the game. No bubble gum comes with them, but that'd be kind of neat, wouldn't it?
It would be cool.
Sort of like a collectible thing. But but you buy the expansion figures, you get the cards. Now the Gunfighter's Ball version of these figures, it will go into 6 packs that'll be with faction names once fulfillment is over. They won't make an appearance in the Gunfighter's Ball line until after everything's been fulfilled, and then you'll see groups of 6 figures with a name, a faction name, and that's how those will get sold.
Oh, cool.
Because I know how your mind works, or I like to think I do. What was the inspiration behind the bush ranger character with the steel helmet? He looks like
that's Ned Kelly.
Is that a real? Is that somebody that was real?
Yeah, that's Ned Kelly. So he was an Australian. That's why that's a little more obscure. But Ned Kelly was an Australian bandit, and he had a gang, and he made this plate armor for all of them. All the guys in the gang had this. Yeah, it's wild looking, man. It's very sci-fi looking, steampunk looking.
Yeah.
There's a museum of Ned Kelly in Australia. Yeah.
Wow. And then so Ned Kelly's coming to Gunfighter's Ball too, I guess.
Absolutely. He's down at the center bottom of that picture. See him there in his armor.
Yeah. See him, man.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's
I'm also
cool.
Googling him. Whoa, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've heard the name, but it's like, it just didn't ring a bell.
That's why the steakhouse is an Australian style steakhouse. That's why it's Ned Kelly. I don't know if you have those out east. But we have those
yeah. Well, we don't have Ned Kellys. We have Outbacks.
We have Outbacks too.
Yeah.
Ned Kelly's
we don't have. You have 2 Australian style steakhouses. That seems notable.
Wilmington, Normal, Illinois is the center of civilization. You should know
that. And you could get your blooming onion. Yeah, look at that. His armor. It's a little way down. Like he really so Camelot-y looking. It's kind of interesting. And he got caught, it looks. Oh, they executed him.
Yeah,
nice.
Nice. Like you do.
That's what happened. But
too bad.
So yeah, I fed in the stretch goals early because I understand this is a crossover product. This is not going to be $100,000 Kickstarter. Okay. So I want to give value early to people. So as soon as we hit the goal, I want to reward people for getting us to that 15,000. And that's why you got a good substantial stretch goal there. And it's only 1,000 more to get to the next group of 3 characters. So that's what that's all about. And I've got them lined up. I don't even have pictures of all of them on here. I've got some bandits. I've got villagers. I've got a sort of an enforcer guy, like a Eastern Muscle out west, you know.
Yeah.
All those haven't been posted yet, so we could just keep going, you know, with the stretch goals.
You have a interesting collection of characters from Gunfighter's Ball that are just ready made to go in here. You know, I think with the characters that you have and the way that they are in the game, you know, don't worry if he doesn't do it, folks, because I think your first 12 characters are amazing. But I never knew
get him
about
to
Ned
do it.
Kelly.
Get in there and buy the Kickstarter.
Buy the Kickstarter because I want some of these. As I explained last time, we've been posting your stuff like every other day. But if you see that he's really close to a stretch goal and you see me putting a lot up there, it's not because I want you to play this game. You could do what you want because I want those stretch goals. So,
yeah.
I mean, you should play
self-interest.
Yeah.
Unbridled self-interest. Yeah. Glad to hear you say that. And I want to point out that it's a low price product. It's not very expensive, so it will take a lot of backers. So we need, and I'm trying to feed more add-ons in there to help people get the total up higher too. I've got really low hanging fruit that I don't know why I didn't think of it before, but we're talking about communication in a Kickstarter, and somebody asked about this, and immediately I could see it was a great idea. And that was make some modular map boards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And we've got the artwork to do it. We actually designed and got a good start on an Adobe town and a mountain hideout, and you can turn those into modular map boards in a heartbeat. The only reason we didn't put them in the game is, number one, keep the price down so it doesn't become a $100 game, and because boards are expensive. And then the other reason we didn't do it was because we wanted, if it was going to be a proper map board, it had to be play tested really well. And that means making sure your item locations and your spawning points don't give people unnatural advantages. Then we figured if it was a do-it-yourself board, people could place the markers where they wanted to, and they could place the spawn points where they want to, and they'd be the masters of their own game. Then they could design it the way they want to and unleash people's creativity. So if I can get the draft artwork of some of those boards posted and get the add-ons out there, I've priced out a set of 4 10x10 boards and 2 5x10 boards to put together in an arrangement to have as a DIY kit, as I call it.
Yeah, there's also a couple of cool things I do want to mention too. It's you can almost play a mini campaign with this game.
Yeah.
Which I believe is really kind of neat. This is a game for me that I would put in my car as I am heading up to a minis convention for downtime and in between games in a tournament. This is a fun game because I don't really have to go very deep in teaching the rules. They're very intuitive. You have everything on cards where I don't have to look a lot of stuff up. The other one too, it doesn't take a long time to play this game.
I was going to ask, what's an average game for like 4 players?
It ranges from what, if there's a bunch of lucky shots, you may have a half-hour game, or you might have an hour if it gets a little more involved. Maybe hour and 15 sometimes. And there's also this rider. You see the main graphics on the Kickstarter. You see this horseback figure. And then you see the sort of blue and pink track around the edge of the board. He rides that track as a definite ending point that prevents those stalemates that come at the end of a lot of shootout games. So when he gets to the end of the track, the game's over.
You missed something.
Yeah.
You missed something real big. What's the name of that guy?
The guy on the horse?
Yes.
Well, he is I can just say, well, okay, so he's a historical character, so I can say it. He's Curly Bill.
Oh,
Oh, cool.
but he has a name in the game, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, in the game, this is the Lone Rider of Eternity, and if you're that sort of has a somewhat familiar ring to it, you might think of the Lone Biker of the Apocalypse.
Yes, I think that's. See, I didn't know. I didn't know the model was an historical character, but as soon as I read that when I was reading through the rules, I'm like, the Lone Biker. I don't know if I create him in my own mind. Randall Tex Cobb, man. Not a lot of movie roles, man, but he was really good in that. This is, look, I've been playing this game. I think it's great. I hope that you will hear my excitement and buy into this Kickstarter, especially, with some of the stretch goals, because Daddy want those. Daddy really want. But, for the grogs that normally listen to this show and you're like, yeah, this is not for me, I didn't think it was either. This is with Gunfighter's Ball, but I read it and I realized what this game could do as far as, well, this is an actual miniatures game I can play with my family.
Yeah.
And I just think by this showing up my house, it kind of came true. I see this game needed for our community because the more games that I think we have in common with the board gaming community at large, I think you'll see some crossover there eventually. Even like RPG players may enjoy this.
I definitely think they would.
Being a pretty avid RPG player and board gamer, I can tell you there are I would say a significant minority of each that also plays miniatures games in some way or another. Whether it's a low model count game like a Malifaux or something big and chunky like a Warhammer 40K, there's definitely like the Venn diagram of the nerd universe is definitely heavily interlinked when it comes to gaming.
Yeah, but this game I think sits at the intersection of that.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what makes it so great. I forgot to put an ending on that sentence, which is why I think especially a game like the one you're making right now allows people from any of those three, because you can kind of get into the character of the Old West. It's something emblematic that we all understand, but it's also a board game, but it's also got those miniature components to it, so it works out really well. Yeah.
I tried to keep one of the things that usually kind of drove me away from some of the crossover games was the heavy use of little chits of iconography that I had to figure out, what's that symbol mean? Oh, is that like a function of some kind? That I like with these concepts. And it was just like littered. A lot of rules or games are just littered with this iconography that I can't figure out fast enough in order to get up and play the game. So I wanted something that people who aren't, because that to me cries out, you're not welcome here. You're not a gamer.
Yeah.
If you were a gamer, you would understand that. And so I wanted the game materials to be inviting to people who aren't experienced at that kind of stuff. And so in order to make it a crossover game.
Yeah, this definitely can do it. And actually, as I'm on the phone with,
I'm
actually gonna add to it. So
excellent. And for the grognards out there, the traditional Gunfighter's Ball figures are available as add-ons too. Like if you want the game, get the game intact as it is with the cartoon figures, perhaps to give to, a nephew or a niece or your sister's family. You can buy as add-ons all those Gunfighter Ball versions of the figures and keep them for yourself. They're at a much lower cost in the Kickstarter than they're going to be when they go for sale in the regular shopping cart.
So you should have just gotten a notification. Some idiots changed their stuff. So
let me refresh my page here.
Yes.
This is the fascinating content you come here for. Mitch updating his Kickstarter in real time.
Well, yeah, it didn't. Oh, there it goes. Because I have to get the figures in 28 mil, just because. So just how I am.
Sure.
Right. Well, but look, here's the thing. I'm no different than any other gamer, man. I shop a lot for games. I play a lot of games. It's all good. So we're coming up on our, see what I got here. We're coming up on an hour and 15, and Craig has not crapped out on us yet. I could talk to you forever, and we'll probably talk offline once I kill Craig. But Forrest, once again, man, thank you so much. The game is Gunfight Royale. You can find it on Kickstarter. If you look below, I will put a link on it. This is a really good game, and I'm not saying it because he's here. Because as soon as I played the game, I did message him, and I said, this is a really good game. It's also something I think that the community needs. Yeah, it's a little lighter fare than your 6mm Napoleonics, but
Sure.
it's fun, and I think like if you want to teach somebody what our hobby's about, this is great. But even if you're just a board gamer, um, it's pulpy, it's witty, the mechanics they just work, and I think that definitely you should look at this game. So once again, thank you.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And just folks that are listening here, just let me know if there's any questions I can answer for you about this. You can reach me through the Knuckleduster Facebook page or the Knuckleduster website, or through the comment section on the Kickstarter.
Right. Or just,
Knuckleduster.com.
yeah,
That's right.
and then I want to thank too Sean for being back on the show.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
So turn
Nice
it
to
back.
meet you, Sean.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you as well, sir.
Turn it back to yourself, and then we can stop recording.
We'll turn it back over to me.
Thanks so much for joining the show tonight. Remember to follow us on Twitter at No Dice, No Glory, and keep the conversation going on NoDiceNoGlory.com, now featuring our own message boards. Have a great night, everybody.